Hello, I'm Steve Ryder and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. We're going to look back at the classic action at Newmarket on what was a brilliant weekend for Goddolphin. We're also going to look back at the Punchestown Festival and then look ahead to Chester and a brilliant card at Ascot on Saturday. I'm going to do that in the company of my good friend and Irish racing expert, Johnny Ward, and making his Racing Weekly debut, Josh Stacy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It was a short walk in, so delighted. Got a few things done this morning, but looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I was praising the fact that it wasn't that long to get here via Heathrow, and Josh was like, oh, I walked here, so yeah, we got here anyway.
Definitely. Josh, we're seeing you more and more on screen. A little bit of history for our viewers around how you got into racing and where people can see your content.
I don't know if you remember a horse called Thomas Crapper.
Yeah.
One of my dads growing up had an 18th in him or a hare, and he took me to Cheltenham when I was 13, and the only thing I knew at the time was AP McCoy and green and gold. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I thought that, the same horse that could go out one race and another, and it was the Trials Day Cheltenham 2013. My stepdad was all over the new one in the Classic Novices Hurdle, and AP was on at Fisher's Cross.
Yeah.
And I obviously only knew AP and those silks, so I said, nothing, AP's going to go and win. They came down the hill together, and AP lifted him over the line. And what I found amazing, there was two things. It was coming down the hill and the roar and the anticipation. Like, I was a big football fan. I'm a Man United fan. I've been to Old Trafford plenty of times with my dad and loved it, but there was no feeling that I've had that was similar to those horses coming down the hill, the trying to find the winner, then suddenly it's happening, then you get the battle coming up the hill. It was just spine tingling, it really was. And that might be a slight cliche, but honestly, no feeling I've had was anywhere near that. And then both horses went on to win at the festival.
They did. I was just about to say
So,
that. I hope you kept in mind the form.
But it was. So then suddenly, from someone who'd never been racing before, never watched a race, to see that you can go racing, you can see two really good horses, two great jockeys. Sam Twiston-Davies was young at the time, and then they both go on to the festival, this massive meeting that's on TV, and both of those horses that you saw went and won, was so special. And then I was lucky enough to go up to Robin Dickens, a small trainer in Warwickshire, to go and see Thomas Crapper. He was a great horse. He went off favourite twice at the Cheltenham Festival, so I didn't really know how lucky I had it at the time. But I was just hooked from it from then on, and this is what I wanted to do ever since.
It's really interesting he says that, Josh, because like that roar in the middle of a race, like that's been lost at a lot of race meetings. And I think if you watch back Denoli winning the Hennessy in the late 90s and the Irish commentary that day, like I wasn't even into racing then, but like you get really emotional, and a lot of that has gone from race meetings where it's quite serene and quiet, and that's something that like. I'm like you, Josh. Like my early memories of going to football matches was the noise of the crowd, like, and that's the stuff that we have to ensure stays. Where if you go racing, you get gripped by the emotion because of an attachment to a horse or a bet.
Yeah, we're going to discuss Punchestown, but I thought, for me, the atmosphere there, again, that roar, especially sort of State Man jump in the last, Galopin jump in the last, that it seems to really kind of come back in the recent seasons, though.
Yeah, this year was good. Like Galopin Des Champs at Leopardstown, I wasn't there on this season, but like the crowd around him, massive crowds at Punchestown as well. And I feel there was a really nice mix of people there, like kind of race goers were there, and a lot of locals and a lot of party goers, and there was a really good atmosphere at Punchestown, and like old school crowds by the end of the week. We're talking the guts of 40,000, which is unheard of, and testament to the kind of popularity of the jumps, even though I personally found the Guineas weekend way more interesting than Punchestown myself, and maybe that's just me.
Yeah. You talk around the crowd at Punchestown. The UK trainers did well. I think 7 different trainers had winners over 8 different races, the likes of Alan King and Warren Greycheck's going over, Harry Derham as well. So, yeah, you need to watch out, Johnny.
It was phenomenal. It was like, and I really enjoyed that. And everyone in Ireland, pretty much, we want British horses coming over for the handicaps and for the, okay, if you finish second to one, that's fair enough. But, I've made the point that there's nothing wrong with British racing in terms of the trainers, the jockeys, the horses. It's where the owners decide to send their horses. That's all it is. Prize money in Britain is actually better than in Ireland now, the way it's shaping up in the good races. And it was fantastic to see, like, particularly in handicaps. You would not think, there's always this paranoia about Irish horse and British handicaps. The handicappers did so well. It was fantastic to see.
Yeah, it was. And we're going to touch on more of that in Racing Recap. But before we get into our Punchestown review, I want to touch on the 2000 Guineas, Johnny. I was there. It was a brilliant atmosphere. The talking points afterwards, I suppose, were on the Ryder Field of Gold. But I want to give the winner some credit. I thought Ruling Court was really, really good. Keen enough in the early stages, and they're obviously hoping that he's going to step forward and become a Derby horse.
This race was fantastic. It just had everything on an incredible weekend for Goddolphin. Absolutely incredible for Charlie Appleby and Goddolphin. And Aidan O'Brien's famine in the race goes on, and he'd one runner who was well down the field. I really fancied Field of Gold, I have to say. I really fancied him. And watching it back, I thought, you know straight away there's going to be criticism of the ride, particularly as he stayed on so well late in the race. But for me, Kieran Schumacher rode Field of Gold thinking he's going to win. The problem was then they didn't go hard early at all. No. They didn't go hard. And I was looking at him, I was like, he's travelling great, but there was that moment in the race where basically William Buick kind of got after Ruling Court. Kieran Schumacher was a lot slower to get after Field of Gold, and it was kind of like he was still very, very confident. And then when he did get after him, it wasn't an immediate response. And all of a sudden, he went from looking, for me, he was long odds on to win, to being like, God, he's definitely not going to win here. And then he started closing towards the end of the race. But I'm sort of thinking, if Field of Gold happened to if he happened to come to the Irish Guineas or something like that, he'd be an absolute certainty. I loved the run, but I've so much respect for Ruling Court the way he did it. And the whole story of Ruling Court is completely mad. He's by Justify. He was a Justify Breezo purchase for $2 million. And Justify is Coolmore's big white hope. Like, they've sent everything to him. Yeah. There's a great article in the Racing Post Martin Stevens has. So Coolmore will be thrilled that Justify won a Guineas, which didn't happen last year with City of Troy. And how far could he get? But the fact that Goddolphin won it with a Justify, it added so much to the whole story of the race. And Field of Gold for me, I thought he emerged with massive credit. He didn't look like he was necessarily in love with the track / the ground on the day, the way he kind of moved in the closing stages, but he's so much ability. It was a fantastic race, and for me, it was interesting how irrelevant the Irish were in it, with one runner and Green Impact finished 6th, but the one Ballydoyle runner well beaten.
Yeah, it's interesting looking ahead. You've now got Ruling Court 5-1 second favourite for the Derby with Bet365. Field of Gold apparently going to stick to the mile. St James's Palace is likely to be next on his agenda. 13-8 favourite Bet365. Shadow of Light 9-2. I thought it was really interesting to watch both Kieran Schumacher and William Buick on one side and Mikel Barcelona on the right-hand side kind of then come round and meet in order to then go from there.
I think that was the reason why I was so impressed by Ruling Court. To be honest with you, going into it, I thought that Ruling Court would step forward and would be more of a middle distance horse rather than a miler. So the fact that he showed that speed, and he defied a few obstacles. He was drawn on the wing. Buick got after him early, and he still kind of went again once he hit the rising ground. So I was impressed. I think in all those instances, when a jockey is under criticism for getting a horse beat that maybe the racing public feel like they should have won on, it's very easy to blame Kieran Schumacher. I personally felt that obviously if he had it again, he may have gone slightly earlier. I think that's probably without question. But looking at it after the first furlong or two, they weren't going the same clip that they went in the Craven. In my opinion, all-time great jockeys possibly go to Plan B and stick with that. Maybe that's what Kieran Schumacher should have done. But equally, Field of Gold, like Johnny says, is going to be winning so many races this season, a mile and 10. So I think there was more positives to take from his run than negatives. But again, he may have been able to win a Guineas in another day. But I was really impressed by Ruling Court. And I've got no problem with him running over 10. I think it'd be fascinating at Epsom.
That's why we love it as well, because like the great jockeys, it is about not making mistakes. And this wasn't even necessarily a mistake, but there had to be a plan B because of the early gallop. And it was really worrying if you backed him. It's like he has to quicken off a really funereal early pace here. But also he knows the quirks of the horse. He's keen. So you couldn't like just rush him up to the lead. That wasn't going to work either. And that's why we love racing, because Frankel went off $1 million in the Guineas. This was completely different, and we didn't know this was going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just go back and watch the Craven, because I had in my head that it was instant acceleration, but Field of Gold, he was slightly behind horses and had to come out. And I just wonder whether Kieran Schumacher kind of thought, right, okay, it's going to be instant acceleration. And I worry about Royal Ascot for him on that St James's Palace round a bend, because he's keen in the early stages. And I just worry the fact that he's going to be, further towards the back than the front in the St James's Palace. And if he doesn't get a run towards the rail, on Field of Gold. I worry around the criticism of the ride.
I totally disagree in the sense that I think that race will just suit him. And he actually settled very well on Saturday. Like, he is relatively well.
Okay.
He's maturing for me anyway. He's definitely getting better. Kingman was beaten in the race and then went on to basically do everything right there afterwards. But I think with the bend, it'll just... It's not that easy in a straight track like that to quicken off a slow pace. I think with the bend, it'll be easier for him, in my view.
Yeah, if you go back and watch Rosalian and Sean Levy last year, rode for luck, got that luck, whereas William Buick had to kind of sweep round the outside on Notable Speech, and I know he wasn't himself that day, but I just think it's going to be a really interesting race going forward. One to put into that equation will be Cosmic Year as well. I thought he was really impressive in the King Charles on the Friday. He's 8-1 with Bet365 for the St James's Palace, apparently likely to head to the Irish Guineas as well. Yeah,
another Kingman as well, and it's a bit of an embarrassment of riches in the sense of the Kingman breds. He looks very, very good, very classy as well. I do feel there's not enough respect for Officer, what he did at the Curry yesterday in the sense of the betting. I'm not sure Bet365 odds, but there is a bit of 10-1 available. But I'd love if he did come over to the Irish Guineas. Rare enough runner for the yard in Ireland these days, but yeah, he looks very smart as well.
Does. Josh, go to the 1,000 Guineas, Desert Flower. If you just look at the Racing Post result, Desert Flower justifies even money favouritism. But we were there on course, and there was a few edgy moments when Flight came alongside and may have even headed her.
Yeah, I think if you'd taken the short price, you'd have been slightly worried for a good part of that race. I thought, in fairness to Ollie Sangster, he's not been training too long, and he's had two brilliant runners there who both ran with immense credit. I felt that after the race, Simmering, a mile would be her max, where the Flight you could probably see go up to 10 in time. But yeah, the winner, I felt like she would just improve throughout the season. I think she's going to take an awful lot of stopping in these mile fillies races. And although she wasn't visually as impressive as some horses who have won that race, I think that she'll go on to be very special this season. Yeah,
she's now 3-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Oaks. Springer in that market is Falakea, who won the Pretty Polly on the same day, is now 7-1. I thought she was unbelievably impressive, and arguably I wouldn't be going anywhere near an Oaks trip of 1.5 miles.
This is Falakea, isn't it? I don't think she's gone that far.
If I was going to go anywhere from that 10 furlongs, it would be down in trip, I thought.
It was interesting. I was at Owen Burrows on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, and we spoke about her, and he said, given the one run only at Wolverhampton, she might just not be there upstairs. I think Jim had been there a few times to ride her out and said that she may be slightly slow to learn what she's doing. And I mean, she didn't do anything probably to plan at the weekend, but again, she couldn't have been any more impressive. I thought after 3 courses of that race, there's no chance she's going to go and win this, and she just kept going, and I thought, interesting. I would worry that with that run style that should be found out in an Oaks, but it's fascinating. She clearly has immense ability, and she clearly just needs to harness it somehow. I know Burrows has got a bit of a job to do.
Yeah. Back to the 1,000 Guineas, like Desert Flower, in all of her races, she's strong towards the end over that mile. Do you think sort of 1.5 miles at Epsom will suit her in an Oaks?
It's hard to know really on pedigree and everything else. It's such a jump, and everything she does would suggest that she can step up to maybe 10 furlongs. And her 2-year-old form, I actually did think the Guineas might be a bit short for her, looking at her 2-year-old form. And as Josh says, like, I don't know what price she went in the run, but like, she did look under serious trouble, like, with all of the horses the near side coming over. This race really was a race that you'd have to watch several times again. Look at El Wateen's run, like, second run. I thought that was a staggeringly good run, one to take out of the race. Lake Victoria, I sort of thought a furlong and a half down she was nearly going to win, ends up finishing 6th. Red Letter for me, I think there might be a question mark over the ground for her. These were two Frankels who ran against each other on debut, and there was nothing between them. And like, here we go, a year later, there was a neck between them. It was literally a historic repetition. And Red Letter could be better than that, but I thought El Wateen emerged with massive credit. I'm not sure about Desert Flower over 1.5 miles on pedigree. The way she races would let you think she's definitely going to stay a lot further. I'm not sure she would, but Lake Victoria, given that it was an interrupted prep, I'm far from certain about her getting 1.5 miles, by the way, but I think she will come on from this, and I'd be keeping her at 1 mile for the time being. Great race to watch, though. Such a fascinating race, and I love the attitude of the winner. And what do you say about Charlie Appleby? Like, he's just a really likeable guy as well. Like, you can't underestimate the pressure of training for these connections. Like, you know, and he's just, you know, I saw Instagram footage of him just mucking out, and apparently he'd made the dinner the day after and everything. He's just a likeable guy, and I'm delighted for him.
I think and I'm now in this mindset is when a daughter then has a pony, you end up not being Charlie Appleby, the horse race trainer that's just trained a classic winner. You end up mucking out your daughter's pony the next morning.
It's all ahead of you.
Exactly.
There's no excuses for us now, though. Because if you go and win a Guineas and then you're cooking Sunday lunch and then you're washing everything, he's set the bar high.
He has.
It was incredible. Like, there was an article in the race post about since the Mahmoud Al-Zarouni days, was 12 years ago, whatever. This was an incredible weekend for the boys in blue. Like, you couldn't cross, and you know, we'll talk about maybe some of the other Appleby horses that he's happy to go wherever he wants to go with the horse to win, but the battle between the boys in blue and Coolmore at the moment, like, Goddolphin are in a very, very good nick, and they've access to a really good stallion. And that's why winning the 2,000 guineas with the Justify, it was such a compelling kind of bizarre element to the whole the weekend. Yeah,
just a few points that have been made there. Like Saeed Bin Surur, I thought, like, he obviously doesn't get the numbers these days, but he had horses finished fourth in both the 2,000 and the 1,000 guineas, both at good prices. Desert Flower for me reminds me a bit of Minding. Like, was good enough to win and stay the mile trip in the Fillies Mile at 2, wins the 1,000 guineas. I think she can still win the Oaks because of her class, as opposed to her then getting trip. And actually 10 furlongs might then be her best distance.
And the way she gives herself such a chance the way she races. I actually think both Guineas winners could stay at Epsom, but you wouldn't be sure. Like, I think it was mad as well, the names of the two horses for Sheikh Mohammed, Desert Flower and Ruling Court. Like, it's just perfect. But Ruling Court for me, like, he's really bred to get. Like, he's by Justify out of a High Chaparral mare. He's really bred to get it, and I'm not sure he was as keen as you're saying. I think he's relaxed enough to give himself a chance. But it gives us so much to talk about between here and Epsom.
Yeah, it does. Another winner for Charlie Appleby, I just want to touch on. You obviously said he just seems to know exactly how good his horses are. The likes of Silver Knot will go over to America and then will come back when they need to. Cinderella's Dream, I was against her. She hadn't ran in the UK since finishing down the field in the Guineas, and then comes back. And I mean, I was on El Malca. I thought back at Newmarket, and William Buick just came there absolute swinging.
So
impressed.
He's going to have a hell of a year ahead as well.
Yeah, could do. Was there anything else from Newmarket over the weekend on the flat that took your eye outside of the big two races?
I mean, it was probably Falakaya for Owen Burrows. I thought that the way she did that, she had every excuse not to go and win that impressively, and she did. Again, I would probably be against her, and they might not go down the Oaks route if she was to go that way. But it'd be fascinating to see how she progresses. Yeah,
Johnny, obviously you've been here, there, and everywhere over in Ireland recently. Some good cards recently.
Yeah, I wanted to mention Wise Approach's win.
Oh yeah, Ascot.
Yeah, I really like that performance. That horse the Coventry could be very hot this year. That horse has a hell of a pedigree for this type of test. He is a half brother to Perfect Power, and you know, I love the way he did. He was actually £1 million, £1 million guineas yearling, so he was well liked. I love the way he did it, and that experience of Ascot, you can kind of see him doing the same thing come the Coventry or whatever. It's going to be a hell of a race. I got to mention a few horses yesterday that ran at the Curragh as well. It was just I was up at Down Royal, but the main action was at the Curragh. First race, Andab, 8-1 for Joseph O'Brien. Yeah. He's by, I think he's by Saxon Warrior, who's actually had a very good weekend. He had a nice winner in Newmarket as well, Saxon Warrior, in the shape of Sardinian Warrior. And Saxon Warrior was a sire that probably they had an awful lot of expectation for. And now he could be one of these sires that gets going a little bit when he's kind of considered maybe not going to be as good as they thought he was. He absolutely bolted up. It was one of these median sires series maidens, which renders it maybe less competitive than you'd think. But Valentina, who was favoured, was only fourth. Bear on the run. I was talking to Danny Murphy the day before. He really fancied her. And Andab, Dylan Brown McMonagall was saying afterwards, I really wasn't expecting that. We thought he'd come on for the run. He absolutely bolted up. I was very impressed with him. As well as that, just at the Curragh as well, Lady Imam saw the drone footage.
The drone footage is unbelievable.
Why don't we have more of this?
I don't know.
It was so good. Like, drone footage. I was at a racing yard recently where there was a guy and he was showing me the drones are about 1,200 quid or something. And on a windy day, they're almost like, they're motionless. It's incredible what they can do. Have to be used more in racing. Officer for me was very interesting going forward. He's 10-1 to win the Irish Guineas. Considering he ran against the older horse on his seasonal debut, ran very well. He beat Currawood and Alakazi, who are very, very smart horses, beat them readily. Even Beckman, who was third, was a decent horse. And Aidan O'Brien was really gushing about him afterwards. 10-1 for the Irish Guineas is well worth taking for me. And Dab and him were the two horses I took out of the Curra. And then we obviously had Los Angeles and White Birch. It was just a great day's racing.
It was, yeah. Los Angeles, he's just got such a good attitude at the finish. I never had him out as a 10 furlong horse.
Yeah, he's deceptive in that regard.
Yeah, and then gets to the front and, okay, I'm just going to keep you behind you by a neck.
I was at the yard last year. I remember taking a few selfies of him, and he has that bit of Monju in him. He's a bit of a character, very likeable horse.
He's very much a character. So I was there on Derby Day, and he was basically unsaddleable for Aidan O'Brien in the parade ring. He was a real burly big boy, even down at the start during the race.
I think his line after the race yesterday was he'd rather walk over you than around you, which I thought was good.
And that's exactly how he was in the parade ring for the Derby. And whether he's grown up, apparently by that comment, maybe not.
And like White Birch's return as well was, I mean, to have a horse like him for John Murphy, like it was a brilliant return. Even Trust Your Instinct in third. It was a fantastic racing at the Curry yesterday.
Yeah. As with this time of the year, we're going to switch codes. Punchestown. The highlight for me had to be Galopin Des Champs. What a performance. He'd obviously finished second in the race the last couple of years, having won the Gold Cup. It's now completely reversed on its head. Finished second in the Gold Cup, and you go and win at Punchestown.
He's got everything. I mean, we are really witnessing a modern day great. That's his 12th Grade 1. And he's now done it at Punchestown. Obviously, the question is, could he do it at Punchestown? He got beat a couple of times in the John Dirk, and he's been beaten at that meeting the last couple of years by Fast or Slow. But really, he's just a horse that you love seeing win. He's just one of those that captures everyone and the crowd. He's one of those horses where if you don't go racing and he wins, I'm kicking myself that I've not made the effort to go and see him. But he's brilliant, and fair play to him. He's danced every dance this season. He started early in an early John Durkin, and yet he's still winning at Punchestown. He's really got everything. He's got longevity, and I think we'll come on to a horse later on where longevity isn't going well for him at the moment. But I just think longevity is the most important thing when it comes to being a great, and Galopin Des Champs is a modern one.
Yeah, even based in the UK, all of the fans of horse racing love Galopin Des Champs, and he's now become a horse like Frankel was, slightly not at the same sort of prices, where he wins, you don't have a penny on, and you're roaring him home.
And he was probably, excuse me, he was probably a backable price as well in hindsight, that he was a bit of odds against. I wasn't mad on him. I always feel he's vulnerable at Punchestown.
Yeah.
Having said that, I tipped Monty Star in the race on the basis of price. I didn't think I'd be tipping him to beat Galopin Des Champs, but I wasn't mad on the other two in the race. I do have my suspicions about the race itself. I was watching them in behind. I'm not sure any of them actually really ran to form. I mean, Spillane Tower was beaten 22 lengths. I think he probably wants easier ground. Banbridge ran no sort of race. Monty Star Rachel never really looked like she was that confident. Having said all of that, everything Josh said there, for that horse to have the season he's had, staying chasing is really tough. It's really tough. He's run races like the Gold Cup last year on exceptionally grueling ground. I felt this year at Cheltenham, when he was so weak in the market, I felt that was partly ground-based, that he wants softer ground. They were watering the hell out of Punchestown to keep it relatively safe, and he won by 22 lengths. And to keep at it, like staying chasing year after year after year, is so difficult. I'm not sure if Willie Mullins does much with them at home. I'd say he kind of tries to keep them as fresh as possible. You look at, like, say, the Gordon Elliott horses, how they were early on in the season, relative to the Cheltenham and the Punchestown that he had. Willie is able to kind of keep horses sweet at the end of the season, and maybe Gordon just doesn't have the firepower at the moment, but he'd a disappointing enough Punchestown, whereas Willie didn't, and he had Kopek to boards and others disappointing. But Galopin Des Champs and others were very good, and for me, Galopin Des Champs, to put in that performance and to have that enthusiasm after being hammered at Cheltenham, he's an absolute modern day great, one of the best staying chasers I've seen anyway, and as Josh said, people love him.
Yeah. 10 months in advance. I'm not going to do this for every race, but Gold Cup picture. I know you're really thinking 4-1. Galopin Des Champs 6-1. Fact to file 10-1.
Nothing's in it. You look at the novices from this year. Coldwell Potter, he'd limped over the line at Aintree.
I was disappointed in him at Aintree, actually.
It was a brilliant. I mean, amazing to win it. But I've never.
He
seen
wasn't
a
Gold
horse,
Cup like. It wasn't like he's going to win a Gold Cup.
I've never seen a horse stop so quickly after the line. Lecky Watson won the Brown Advisory. I think Haiti Couleurs, there's an argument to say that he's possibly the best staying novice this season, having won the Irish Grand National.
33-1 with Bet365?
I mean, you wouldn't want to. I can't have Haiti Couleurs as a Gold Cup horse personally, but you're looking at it, and there's realistically 2 horses that can win it next year, unless Coldwell Potter or Lucky Watson massively step up. I know the way you're thinking hasn't done anything wrong since his Gold Cup win. Of course, he's 4-1, probably a relatively fair price given the field, and Galopin Des Champs is 6-1. I mean, I wouldn't back him at 6-1 as we speak right now. But again, going back to how special he is, I think the reason why he's so special is because he gets beat. He's won 3 of his last 6 races. He got beat in the John Durkan, he got beat at Punchestown last year, he got beat in the Gold Cup. And he's the perfect advocate and model horse where you see lots of trainers protect their horses to the max. They won't run them if the ground is a millimetre out of where they want it to be, or they won't run them if it looks like it's going to be a competitive race. Where the Galopin Des Champs has his routine. You know exactly which 5 races he's going to run at the start of the season, and he ran in all of them. And yes, he got beat, but then when he wins, it's even more special, and he's brilliant when he wins. So not going to get stuck into him at 6-1 for the Gold Cup. He'll be a year older, but equally you're scratching your head working out really what's going to take those 2 on.
Well, if you train, I know the way you're thinking. You have to be, and I kind of asked Gavin Cromwell this, but I don't really want to say it. You have to be working back from 3 Gold Cups in a row in your head, because Galopin Des Champs he really went there this year. He was odds on. It didn't happen. But I know the way you're thinking is so young, and the way he loves Cheltenham, the way he races, and also ultimately the way he's campaigned. I mean, God forbid you want to back him ever at Leopardstown, because whatever it is about the way he's campaigned, he was trained to win a Gold Cup, but he really, really peaks. For a horse who can make little mistakes, he's brilliant. He's a stayer with speed. He's got a lot of walk in the parks. If they stay, they have incredible class. Like, he wins the Gold Cup next year for me, all going well. If he doesn't, now it's a long way away and things can go wrong, but I can't really see Galopin Des Champs a year older reversing the form.
No, it's going to be fascinating, the markets for those kind of big chases early on in the season, because you pretty much know that Galopin Des Champs is going to get beaten in the John Durkan.
Well, I think I know the way you're thinking. It was 22s in the race this year for a horse who I thought has a proper. There was even talk he wasn't running the Gold Cup because it was a year too early, and then he was supplemented. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
But like Galopin at Christmas and at the Dublin Racing Festival on that softer ground is unbeatable. It's just unbelievable.
But that's it as well. I was trying to put myself in the position of William Mullins and thinking, right, how do you go and try and regain a Gold Cup? Do you give him a lighter campaign? Do you send him to Tremor on New Year's Day and then send him straight to Cheltenham? No, of course you don't.
And he's not like that either, Willie. He's not like that.
But he's going to go and have his first run of the season in the John Durkan. He'll go to Leopardstown. He'll take a world of beating. But then in that, as an older horse, are you sacrificing the Gold Cup? Is Gavin Cromwell almost happy to go and watch Galopin Des Champs go and win twice at Leopardstown, knowing that maybe the race has gone there?
I think it's more to the point, what does the owner want as well, with him. But with Willie, like that, what Josh says there, if you're at a morning at Willie's, and it's a morning that's designed around, sponsored by Punchestown or sponsored by the Irish Grand National or something like that, and if somebody's apt to ask a question, say if it's for the Dublin Racing Festival, that's a better example, somebody's apt to ask a question around Cheltenham plans, Willie Mullins is very quick to say, we're here to talk about the Dublin Racing Festival. Yeah. He's very happy to win good races that aren't Gold Cup with any horse, let alone Galopin Des Champs. He's won the Gold Cup now. It took him a long time, but he's in that bonus territory, and he'll be very happy to win Leopardstown race with him.
Yeah. Horses that get beat and come back. We've had our debates between the two of us around Marie Nationale, and he has found his form again, hasn't he?
Yeah,
I thought he was
like
really
Gaelic
good.
Warrior was another. This is why Punchestown is a week. If you're prone to kind of getting frustrated gambling, like Punchestown is a week where you really, really want to just like take a pull and have a coffee, because Kopek to boards, and we've seen a lot of footage of people having heavy bets on, I don't bet money you can't afford to lose, but people almost not being able to explain why a horse runs badly at Punchestown. They are trained for Cheltenham and not really as much Punchestown, so he did beat a very underwhelming Gaelic Warrior, but this is a serious racehorse. Like, he shouldn't have been the price he was based on what he did at Cheltenham. He demolished them. Whatever happened to John Bon, on his day, this is a serious racehorse. And yeah, he looks in very, very good place at the moment.
Yeah, he did. El Fabiola was the one that took my eye throughout the whole race. Bless him. Fell again when travelling well at the second last. Factifile, the experiment down to 2 miles, didn't work, but I thought he was beaten before the trip even became an issue, really. What are your thoughts on the race?
I mean, he didn't run his race.
No.
Again, he won the John Durkan. It's been a long season. And I think you've got to take Aintree and Punchestown form with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
The amount of times you see really good horses. I mean, I look back on the year that Envoy and Monkfish looked the superior novice chasers, went to Punchestown, was beaten by a
Cole
Reevy.
That's right.
And you kind of think, how on earth has that happened? Marine Nationale's a horse I just don't get along with.
Come on, son.
My podcast partner, who might be watching this, will be fuming that I'm saying this, but I just think he's mopping up the back end of a year that's ultimately he's running in a terrible division. I kind of think about these horses. Quilixios took him to the last at Cheltenham and came down. John Bon was beaten at Sandown, but Galopin Des Champs hadn't been seen in a year. I mean, if you're actually looking at form lines, Galopin Des Champs went and beat Marine Nationale at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival about 18 months ago. Maybe that's the form line that you want, but I can't have Galopin Des Champs as a champion chase horse next year. And again, I'm looking at the champion chase market next year in Segino 7-2. And I mean, the last quote that Nicky Henderson gave on him is that he might never be a racehorse again.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show how weak this division is. I personally feel that Marine Nationale is benefiting from a very weak division. I think he's a good horse. I don't think he's a great horse. If there was a superstar around, I'd be happy enough to take him on every single time, but there isn't, and I think therefore he's winning races like this. Like I was really disappointed with Factor File, but his race was run far too early, and the fact that Willie Mullins even can think that he can send a Ryanair horse who was originally meant to be campaigned as a Gold Cup horse against the Champion Chase winner and go off a short price favourite means that he really doesn't think much of Marine Nationale as well.
That's a bit, that's poor Willie isn't here to answer that, but it is a good point.
But you also look at the novices coming through. I mean, the Arkle winner looked all right. Caliph de Burley at Aintree was all right. Is there really a superstar there? I don't think there is. So a bit like the staying chase division, at least in the staying chase division, you've got Galopin Des Champs and I know the way you're thinking, who look real superstars. Galopin Des Champs getting older, but in this division, there really isn't one.
I think there is. I think the novice chaser that's going to win the champion chase next year, well, novice from this year, is Marlborough. I know.
Well,
I'm throwing the running order out of it, and we're going straight to Marlborough. Jump left-handed, but I thought he was ridiculously impressive again.
Yeah, I was disappointed in him at Cheltenham, to be honest, because I was like, if you're backing a short price horse in the novice chase, fair enough. But there were 5 runners in the race. Like, you've no excuses here. Just do your job. Even in it's a Grade 1, but it's a 5-runner Grade 1, where the winner was off the bridle the whole way almost. So it was like there wasn't that much pressure on his jumping. He made a terrible mistake, and in fairness, still nearly won. And I'm actually mystified, like at Punchestown, how badly left he jumped and was still able to demolish them, because his flat ability is quite incredible.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you though. I think if he puts it together, he'll be very much bang there next year. What Josh says about Marine Nationale, it's often the case in the 2 mile division. There's just not much depth to it. Like when I was a youngster, we had that Moscow Flyer Zerti up here when. Gosh, Josh, you were a real nipper at that stage, and that was that.
I was in nappies.
You were in nappies. They were the glory days, but there have been a lot of years since where there have been odds-on favourites in the. I mean, even last year's race was one of the worst I've ever seen in the champion chase, and I do think with Marine Nationale on his day he is very good, but I think what Josh says, if you're going to price him up next year against Marlborough, who's getting there with experience, Marlborough will probably be favourite.
Yeah, looking at the market at the minute, Marine Nationale 5-1, Marlborough 8-1. I just think,
that's not a bad bet coupled, I think. I'm not sure who else is going to be there with a chance on the day.
But you with Marlborough, you are taking this season and the fact that he didn't have a second season over hurdles and he was a 5-year-old. Like, you're really hoping that he improves his jumping, because he simply can't jump the way he has on his last 2 starts to win a champion chase next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the race IQ data, which is really interesting in something. Like when you look at the jump index, he was 7.9 in this race, but it's the lengths gained. So 4.41 was his lengths gained in this, and he seems to have the ability to not be fluent over a fence, but get away so fast from it. And I just think that's what you need in a champion chaser. Going back left-handed at all of the spring festivals other than Punchestown is going to suit him. And I wouldn't dream of sending him up in trip to the Ryanair. I think he's a champion chaser all over.
He'll start at 2,
yeah,
definitely. And he's got the cruising speed. But I can't have a horse who is expected almost to make a mistake each time he goes out to be a champion chaser. You need to be slick.
Yeah, right. One horse who was slick was Teahupoo. He just might be an absolute dream to ride. I thought Sam Ewan gave him a really, really good ride. If you look back at it, he was brave to come between Rocky's Diamond and Crambo approaching that second last. And I really like this horse. I've been against him for the last 3 seasons, but I'm now starting to really respect him.
What was interesting here as well was he was very well backed in the context of a week where Gordon was far from... I mean, it's probably overplayed the stable form, but you would have been relatively brave to back him into whatever it was, 6-5, given the stable form. And for me, the thing with him has been the ground, in that he has looked so effective on deep ground, but... A bit like Josh saying about Galopin Des Champs, like he just runs, he finishes second, but he comes again and he wins, and he's a brilliant racehorse. He's been really good at Punchestown the last 2 years. He is, again, he's that stair with speed. He's a lot of class. You know, obviously he was a little bit disappointing on his seasonal debut over 2.5, but it was a very, very good performance from him. And yeah, he's probably one of the most likeable horses in training.
Yeah, he is. He's 4-1 to regain the stayers at the Cheltenham Festival.
Fair price.
Yeah.
I mean, if him and Bob Ollinger, who beat him in the Stayers Hurdle this year, turn up next year, I'd back Teahupoo again.
Yep.
I mean, it's probably a bit late in the day to say this, but I'd have loved to see Teahupoo at some point go over a fence. I know he's an 8-year-old now. It's probably unlikely. He'd be a novice at 9. He'd be possibly running in, let's say, a Gold Cup at 10. But maybe it's too late.
Yeah.
I just think he's got class. We've never seen it. Maybe there's a reason why we've never seen it, but with Rob Core having Hidden Valley Lake and Bob Ollinger, who have both won Grade 1 hurdles this season. I mean, Bob Ollinger won the Stayers. You may be tempted, but...
Look at Faheen. Faheen won a Grade 1 at 12. That's an interesting shout, because Gordon is like, well, where are my Gold Cup horses or my good novice chasers next season? Why not go with them if you know what you've achieved over hurdles? Is an interesting shout.
Yeah, it is. Let's talk about the Champion Hurdle. State Man, 12th Grade 1 of his career. I want to discuss his performance before we get on to Constitution Hill. He's just an amazing horse.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And I mean, the application of cheek pieces has brought out even more improvement. I think there's a fair shout to say at the start of the season, I wasn't sure what State Man would turn up at this stage of the season, because he was massively disappointing behind Brighter Days Ahead. When Lossiemouth fell and people were saying that he was tired at the line. I mean, he was 60 lengths clear at the second. You can doubt him at that point, but what he was like in the Champion Hurdle up until he fell was immense. And here again, brilliant. Arguably a career best. He goes to these races, he runs his race every single time. And yes, he was beaten by Constitution Hill in the Champion Hurdle when he won it. But we went and spoke about longevity at the start of the day when we talked about Galopin Des Champs. State Man's 12 Grade 1s. Constitution Hill's got 8. I mean, if you're looking at who was best at their peak, you may say Constitution Hill, but Constitution Hill may never win a race again. State Man could easily next season go and win 2 or 3 Grade 1s, and at that point you're up to 15 Grade 1s. Like, how many horses in the history of the game have won 15 Grade 1s? Not very many. He's a seriously good horse, and the cliche of you'd love to own him, he is one of those horses, and I'm going to get the cliches out, but he goes there, you know what he's going to do next season, you know he's going to be competitive, you know if there's a real superstar, he might find it difficult, but is there one? Again, he looks top-notch. Yeah,
he did. John, I think we both backed him for the Champion Hurdle when we were then trying to look at each way alternatives. He's 8-1, a similar sort of price as what we backed him at this year for the race.
He was 11s. Racing TV rang or sent a WhatsApp out like we could do with an old anti-post tip or two, so we came up with... And I was like, my angle was, I can't really see him winning the race with the way that the mare is developing. But the 4 horses at the top of the market, they're not all going to show up. And he is a certainty to be in the first 3. 11-1. It was very simple logic. He rocks up on the day, he's 8-1. And it's interesting as well, because Golden Ace, he beat Golden Ace by 4 3/4 lengths. There was an argument at Cheltenham that he was slightly coming to the end of his tether. Now, I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure he would have won. Yeah. But he's had 20 races, all over hurdles. He's won 14 of them, third 3 times. That fall at Cheltenham, for me, he would have won. So he should have 15 wins. Brilliant jumper. He's such a reliable horse. Incredible. I don't know what happened at Leopardstown behind Ryder. She's the mystery of the season for me. Like, apparently now she's going, Eddie O'Leary said this morning, she'd like to go novice chasing. like you're talking about the market with Teahupoo. The market on that mare's race, Jay de Grugy, was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in a Grade 1, where you've like a 4-9 shot go off 6-4 or whatever it was on a horse that literally ran the other day. And she's a mystery to me. And what happened with Statement at Leopardstown is a bit of a mystery, because it's the only time in my life I remember him disappointing. But he's an incredibly durable racehorse and so easy to ride. Put him anywhere, put him out in front, put him wherever. I thought his performance at Cheltenham for a horse who hasn't been great at Cheltenham was probably the best I've ever seen him, when he should have won. What a racehorse. And he's only 8. He's not done with yet.
He's not done with yet. Is Constitution Hill done yet? Josh?
My immediate reaction after the race was, good luck, Nicky. Like, that's going to be some job to get him back. I think the quote afterwards is he said that he's going to turn him out in the field and they're going to hope he mentally forgets about it. I just thought there were so many signs through that race that it wasn't going to plan. And when he was asked for his effort, there was nothing, and that's just not him. But equally, he's coming off the back of 2 heavy falls. Like, what were we to expect? The fact that he went off favourite is quite remarkable. I obviously understand the reasons why, because he was so brilliant at his best. But it's been a long time since we've seen that. We saw him win the Christmas hurdle and he looked great. But there was talk about Lossiemouth underperforming that day and she needed to learn to go the gallop. So maybe that performance really wasn't that great. But you're looking at what he did and you think, well, what do you do next? You either put him in a field and pray he comes back the old horse that he was. But if he doesn't, there are new kids on the block. He probably will turn up at a fighting 5th and he's going to come up against the new lion. He's going to be ready. Dan Skelton will want to put a marker down at the start of the season. He'll be there. At their very best, you'd think, well, who's going to beat Constitution Hill? Have we ever seen a horse who could beat Constitution Hill at his very best? But he's so far from it. And, I mean, they were schooling him over small fences before. They've tried absolutely everything to get this horse and his mind set on the job. I'm just a bit worried that we'll never see it again.
Yeah, you could tell they'd been schooling over fences by a jump at the first. It was that first part of the race, the fact that he didn't particularly want to line up, cocked his jaw and then ballooned the first. The warning signs were there to be seen early on in the race.
Yeah, he's been through a fair bit, this horse, in fairness. At this stage, from the days where he was the best hurdler I think I possibly had ever seen, to now where a lot has gone wrong. And you have to remember, he very nearly fell at Cheltenham in January, very nearly fell. I've never seen a racehorse at that level fall in 2 successive hurdle races. And then to hear that he was being schooled over fences was, for me, massively alarming. He was sent off 8-13 though. He was sent off 8-13.
In show, it was unbelievable.
Evens into 8, so there was like all this confidence. The comments in running in the racing post at Aintree were steady headway, going easily, and just over 1 length down when fell heavily 2 out. I wasn't sure he was travelling that well at Aintree at that point. He'd had that pocket where Nico got in trouble. I didn't think it was a great ride he gave him. Different jockey at Punchestown, no response. Like, no response. I don't know where we go with him. I wouldn't be against the idea of going over fences with him either, to be honest. I don't see why not. He's an ex-point-to-pointer, and that was his original plan. When he didn't win his point-to-point, he first time out, and he made a terrible mistake, and he was going to win, and that's kind of come back now in his life. I don't know where we are with him. I really don't. I think Nicky deserves a lot of credit as well. He was slagged about how many bulletins he was given on the horse, but he's been so frank, and this horse, it'll be a hell of a story next season if he comes back. I'd love to see him in the champion hurdler in some race at Cheltenham, where that's one of the things we're talking about. Will he come back? But he's had a lot of problems at this stage, and that goes to show why horses like Galopin Des Champs and State Man are to die for. I mean, if you had an 80 rated flat handicap or 120 rated hurdler that are as durable as them, you'd be delighted to have them at the top level doing it. He's not able to stand up to it physically.
No. Josh, I'm going to come to you for novice chasers. We've already discussed Marshbury in a little way. Champ Kylie beat Ballyburn, talks of Ballyburn, then going back over hurdles. What are your thoughts? Anything else from Punchestown kind of over fences that took your eye?
I think Ballyburn he doesn't need to be careful, but I think he's slowly possibly becoming Sir Gerhard. And the talk of him going back hurdling is never one that I like when a horse is touted to be the next Gold Cup horse over fences. I think that the Ballymore or the Turners or the Gallaghers or the Neptune or whatever it's called.
I can't believe it's not the...
It's something. It could have a different name as we speak. It's producing a very different type of horse. And I think it's something that we probably need to look at this year's renewal, and obviously we're going to talk about a Final Demand and the Yellow Clay in a bit of detail as well, but that race hasn't produced champion hurdle horses for a long time. Like realistically, Fahim, he was the last horse to have won this race and then been really competitive at the top level over 2 miles. Obviously, he won a champion hurdle. But like you go through the list, 2018 Sam Crow, the next big thing, never happened. 2019 City Island, unfortunate. 2020 Envoi Allen, it took him a good few years to get there, and he did win a Ryanair, but he's not the most consistent. 2021 Bob Ollinger, again, he was a surprise winner of a Stayers Hurdle this year. 2022 Sir Gerhard, 2023 Imperi Pass, hasn't really found his niche. 2024 Ballyburn, again, hasn't found his niche. Like it's a race where, and the one thing that's consistent is every single one of those, when they won the Ballymore, the Turners, whatever it's called.
Machine.
They go, the Machine, that's the champion hurdle horse. They've got plenty of speed. They're not, they're 3 mile chasers. And Ballyburn has been sent up to 3 miles and he's been proven not that good. He's clearly a very good horse, but he's not a champion over 3 miles and he's not a natural jumper of a fence. So the fact that they're reverting to hurdles is red flags. Clearly he's got the ability as a novice to be competitive in that division. We spoke about Teahupoo. I think Ballyburn's got a long way to go and get to a Teahupoo. It'd be fascinating to see how his campaign next year. But looking towards the future with regards to that Turner's, Gallagher's, whatever it's called, the new Lion might be a staying chaser, and we might find that out in 2 years' time. But he's being talked about a champion hurdler. Final Demand, the Yellow Clay, I think they're definitely going to go up in trip. But when it comes to the novice chasers, like being beaten by Champ Cardi, I think Champ Cardi's a very good horse. I think right-handed really suits him. I would love to see him running something like the King George. I think he'd have a right chance. But you've got to be beating him to be a Gold Cup horse, and it's no surprise to see them reverting back to hurdles. Yeah.
We're discussing the Stayers Hurdle scene. I suppose one who threw his hat into the ring and has brilliant Cheltenham form is Jasmine DeVoe. Paul Town had performed miracles to stay on.
Yeah, Paul covered himself in a lot of class, talking about Michael O'Sullivan being the story of the year when he won the championships. It was just a really nice thing for him to do, and he doesn't probably get that much credit as a jockey because he rides so many horses that are very straightforward to ride. This was a bit different, and it was a hell of a ride. It was a hell of a ride, and he looks like, he obviously didn't help him necessarily on the day, but he's a funny horse. He had serious problems with his jumping early in the season. It was very, very good. I thought Final Demand was exceptional, I have to say. I really fancied him at Cheltenham, and I came back from the race thinking, I've always felt walking the parks, they can be a bit soft at times. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. He's a sire that when Duvan came along, basically this was like everyone has to get into walking the park. He came over to Ireland, and Duvan is still the best walking the park after all these years. I met him recently. He's absolutely gorgeous, by the way, and still is. Final Demand, he might be that next big thing. I know the way you're thinking, obviously, since well, but I kind of like Lovely Hurling in the race because he looked so good in his novice campaign, and he sleuthed through the field. And I was like, wow, this is getting interesting. I had a really bad week tipping the racing TV, and I was like, this could be the double figure price I needed. He just motored away from on the bridle by 16 lengths. To me, as much as the Yellow Clay flopped, I do wonder, was he better than he was at Cheltenham? But he's a chaser all day long. He's just the way his stride, everything about him. He could be spectacularly good over fences for me.
Yeah, and you know exactly where he's going to go. I put him up in our Cheltenham review for the Brown Advisory because that's exactly where he's going to go. He's 100s on to run in that race.
It was his 4th run under rules.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
So at Cheltenham, it was his 3rd run under rules, giving him that.
And he's been beaten by a horse who looked really smart, and the New Line might just be a 2 mile Grade 1 hurdler next season. What I like about Final Demand, and I think it's my favourite type of horse, is he will break other horses. He will go to the front, he'll go a really good clip, and he'll kick again. And I think, yes, the Yellow Clay probably didn't run his race, but I also think Final Demand, there's a chance he could have broken him a bit in that race. Long season. And you kind of look back at those types of horses. Galopin Des Champs could be one of them that used to go forward as a novice and break horses. Denman's similar, and he's built in that mould. He's an absolute tank. And you feel like chasing, hopefully it's natural to him, but I think he's won a point to point. So can't wait to see him at fences next year. I was really impressed also, and just looking at the novice hurdles, I thought Ironsi was really good as well. And because he was a big price and he was not the Copette de Board, the Sexy Supreme winner, he may have been slightly overlooked. But I didn't realise that his run before the Supreme, when he was very disappointing, was in a maiden hurdle in November. That's a massive jump. That's a massive ask to ask any horse to do that. So maybe you can just forget about the Supreme. Whether he went there and he won the Grade 2 at Ferryhouse on his next start, and then he's come and won a Grade 1. I thought it was a really good performance. He looked very natural, and he beat Salvatore Mundi as well, who I think will be going over fences and up in trip, and he'll be a good horse. So I just thought Ironsi was very good. Yeah,
that's going to be an interesting race to look back at. A couple of quotes, obviously, with that Kopec's board. Well beaten at the finish. His 7-1 for the Arkle, 12-1 for the champion. Ironsi is 14s for the Arkle and 25s for the champion hurdle. Obviously, betting correct at the time of recording with Bet365.
Yeah, that is one bet I really like. Kopec de board at 7 for the Arkle, because I was saying that after Cheltenham I was like 4-1. He doesn't jump hurdles, send him straight over fences. There isn't a great deal in this division. Now we might have the mare going down that route, we'll see, but 7-1 for me is a great bet. He was odds on in the Supreme, he bolted up, and he didn't perform it. I'm absolutely happy to forgive him Punchestown. That's not his run at all. 7s for the Arkle, you should definitely be backing that. I'd be surprised, definitely, if you ran any other race.
Yeah. I want to come to you for anything else. Obviously, we saw a really impressive performance from Lalamba. We had Bambino Fever, obviously win the bumper, following up the champion bumper win at Cheltenham. It's on the line, winning the Champion Hunter's Chase for the 3rd time. Dino Blue, winning easily in the Mare's Chase. Anything else for you that really took your eye at Punchestown?
The 4-year-old hurdle was a brilliant race. Now I tipped up Blue Lemons, who literally didn't go a yard. So I was sort of disappointed watching the race. I was like, this is the way my week is going. But anyway, I thought Hello Neighbour emerged with a lot of credit. I was on him at 33s at Cheltenham each way. So I was there on the day thinking this is bet's in a good place. But at the same time, it was such a good triumph. Now if you back Lulamba in the triumph, how do you explain this? You go home to the missus and said, how would you get on to it? Well, I backed Lulamba in the triumph. How did he go? He was beaten by 100-to-1 shot who never jumped a hurdle before, right? And it turns out that this is a good horse. So he actually is a good horse, Poneros. Lulamba could be pretty special, I think. He was very inexperienced going into the triumph. But I did think Hello Neighbour, I was very encouraged with the way he finished his race. He was much better in that regard. And these are a special group of 4-year-olds, I feel. Obviously, one of them wasn't there. He's going to Chester. But, yeah, it was a really special 4-year-old hurdle. I'd nearly take Hello Neighbour as one to follow going forward. I thought it was much more encouraging the way he finished his race.
Yeah, champion hurdle campaign, you reckon?
I'd say so, yeah.
Lulamba, 6-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Arkle, 16-1 for the champion hurdle. Has to go Novice chasing, doesn't he?
No, I think they'll keep him hurdling.
Ooh.
I really do. I think that he may look at the Sergino situation, and that was very unfortunate. And he was a superstar before he picked up his injury. But I think they'll try and give this horse another year. And I think he's got the benefit of, I think he's a staying hurdler.
Yeah.
Don't think he's a 3-mile hurdler, but he's got the option of, you probably start him in the Coral Hurdle at Ascot, you maybe look at a rail keel, and then you finish your season at Aintree, say over 2.5 miles. That is a division that horses very rarely target.
Yeah.
So I would personally like to see him given just one more year, a little bit more experience. I think it'll help him. I've got 4 horses for you from Punchestown. I'm going to rattle through them very quickly. I thought Cashel-Dale Lad was very good in the Novice Hurdle on Friday. I think over fences, he'll take some real stopping because he's free going. He goes to the front, but he jumps really well. I think if he can get into a rhythm over fences next year, I think he'll make hay, especially in the early part of the season. 3 horses who didn't win. I thought Lisnagar Fortune up in trip. He'll be winning races. Listed novice handicap chase runner on the Friday off 125 and put up £2. I think 3 miles next season he'll be winning probably big pots. I think he's still well handicapped off 127. Mozzie's sister, she finished 2nd in the listed mares novices hurdle on Thursday, being given a mark of 132. The 2 mile 2 furlong mares handicap hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival. If she goes there, I'll be all over her. And then one British runner who finished down the field for Lucinda Russell was Rochevelle on the first day, ran in a handicap hurdle, mark of 118. Think he's well handicapped. I think up in trip will massively benefit him, and I think that he'll make hay at the start of next season as well.
I actually did want to mention, so just honesty policy, I tipped him in Aintree, but that was a hell of a run given his inexperience stepping up to 3 miles. I know he's beaten by Jasmine DeVoe, but he could be a real prospect going forward in that staying division.
And that's the when we spoke about Teahupoo earlier and Gordon Elliott not having a future superstar novice chaser. My worry is he'll pick one of them to go chasing, and maybe given the age and stuff, honesty policy might
I think
be
he's ex-pointer as well. He was second in his point, funnily enough. Like, it's mad the way like it's mad the way it works. I tipped Champagne Jury up at Cheltenham or at Punchestown thinking like he's so well handicapped based on that form, and he was well beaten and weak in the market. Meanwhile, Honestly Policies has just in 2 or 3 runs has become a proper Grade 1 horse.
Yeah.
And this lad was down the field in a rated novice hurdle who travelled all over him at Leopardstown. It's funny the way it works.
Yeah, I think it's going to be between Honesty Policy and the Wool Park. I think they're both very similar sort of horses. I think one will go novice chasing and the other one will stay as their stay as hurdle horse for next season. Excellent. That was a brilliant edition of Racing Recap this week. Before we get into our Chester and weekend preview, just to let you know, our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guarantee offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you out at the bigger odds. Full terms and conditions can be found on the website. So we'll start off at Chester, the Chester Cup, Johnny. Harry Davies won this aboard Zoffy last year for Hugo Palmer. He's currently jocked up on East India Doc, who obviously we well know from that Triumph hurdle.
Yeah, he's from a very good family. He was very, very well fancied in the Triumph. I love the way, I think he's a proper hurdler, the way because he stays so well on the flat, but he jumps well and just kind of ran into a very good field. The problem with, obviously, we're tipping here on a Tuesday, so it goes without saying, even over 2 miles, 2 furlongs and a half furlong, the draw is going to be quite significant here. I'm not entirely sure what to make of him at the prices. He's rated 89, so he was touched off in fourth, albeit in fourth, in his last flat run in Doncaster in September in the Mallard handicap. So he's fourth that day, made the run, and now he's only 3, so he's more, but he doesn't look necessarily thrown in. I'm going to go with Leinster in the race. Now, I was at Downroyal yesterday to watch all the students and some fast horses. Students, they got 8 races. They did a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day. But I was at Downroyal in May of last year. Must have been a later meet when Leinster won over 1 mile and 2. Didn't think I'd be tipping him a year later on the show in the Chester Cup. Ryan Moore has been booked to ride indeed, and he's steps up in trip, which looks massively in favour. Now, he won at the Curragh easily the last day. It was a way weaker race, way weaker, but he's very, very unexposed. And Joseph O'Brien said afterwards, I hope he turns into, effectively a decent stayer. So I like the way he goes. He still looks like he's learning on the job. He's running off 91, £8 for the Curragh is very, very fair. He bolted up. So I quite like him, and with Bet365, he's 8-1. You might get bigger on the day.
Yeah. Josh, who for you?
Small fancy. I thought Divine Comedy was possibly value at a big price. I thought that he'll stay second in the Ascot Stakes last year. A huge run behind Al Karim in the further flight, and comes back off a good third in the Cigaro. So KF Fraser takes £3 off again, effectively running off 98. I think he had a squeak.
Yeah, currently available at 16-1. I like a mean for this. Finished second by 3/4 of a length in the race last year behind Zoffy. Was rated 92 that day. Zoffy was rated 90. Zoffy is off £1 higher this year, so they've done a really good job with him to get him back down to nearly the same mark. But Declan Carroll's done an even better job. He runs off £1 lower than Mean does in this. Now, interestingly, he ran in the first-time visor that day and then wore it a couple of times later that season. Now, he was sent off 50-1 for the Queen's Cup at Musselburgh on his reappearance without a visor and actually ran really well. Finished 6th, just beating over 3 lengths that day. Now, I'm really hoping the visor goes back on for this race, and he's available at 20-1 with Bet365 for this race. So
could get better on the day as well.
Yeah, so I thought Amin was the one for me in the Chester Cup.
It does go without saying. The draw, I mean, there's no staying race where the draw is more important off the top of my head than this. So you'd nearly be better just wait than punt anti-post. You're going to, you could get 18s on a horse who's 10s at the moment.
Yeah, I did the same thing last year. I tipped Spirit Mixer for Andrew Baldwin, was bought, I think it was about 18, drawn 18 on the day. Ran down the field and then won later on at Chester at that meeting. And you look back at it, don't you, and you go, I was on the right bet there.
Yeah, of course.
And I was just done by the draw.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Chester, it won't take you long to realise why.
No. One race that we do have declarations for, obviously Tuesday morning we are recording, is the Ormond Stakes. Run on Thursday. Illinois is the stable representative for Aidan O'Brien. He obviously has a good record in it. He's now the joint leading trainer with 6 wins with Sir Michael Stout. It was a brilliant horses. St Nicholas Abbey, Japan have won this. Illinois currently 11-10 with Bet365 in the market, but he does have to face Absurd, who obviously comes from his little holiday in Plumpton.
He does, yeah. Won at Plumpton, beat Daddy Longlegs at 9-4, and he was run off 148. He's a fascinating horse, Absurd, because I think they still kind of think they can turn him into a Melbourne Cup winner, which I'm not sure if, of all the things Willie has achieved. I mean, Willie once flew to Melbourne to see a horse work and then flew back. I wouldn't get on a flight to Australia for 2 weeks unless I had a good reason. Not to mind, he went there for like a few hours to see a horse work. Now, he's probably flying first class, but I think he really wants to win the Melbourne Cup. He really wants to win the Melbourne Cup, and he enjoys going over to Australia. He loves that aspect to it. But here we go. He's running in Chester. He's getting £5 off Illinois. I find it hard to have a bet in this, not exactly know where Illinois is at, and he's a very likeable horse. I mean, that Ledger run was just a cracking one last year. To be honest, this is a race I probably prefer to watch. We've had a couple of key horses scratched in it, but William Buick his last few jockeys have been Paul Townend, Colin Keane, Danny Tudhope, Karen McAvoy, Danny Mullins, Harry Cobden, William Buick. That's never been done before. It's going to be interesting. Absurd's a very good horse in his debut. Chester has some cracking meetings, or some cracking races over these middle trip. I'd be with Illinois if I had to have a bet, but because Aidan did have other entries in the race, but he's going to be a very good stayer this year, but wouldn't be rushing the back.
Yeah, I found it a tricky race as well, Josh. All that I have in my head with the likes of Illinois and Jan Bruegel this year is if Kyprios wasn't in the yard, I think they'd be campaigned as Ascot Gold Cup horses. But instead, they're coming to these kind of middle distance races instead.
I just didn't love Illinois because he started last season slowly. I know that was it's a weak excuse, but I just like to see horses hit the ground running, especially on their first start for a season.
Yeah. I'll come back to you for the Victoria Cup. Currently, progressive 4-year-olds head the market in this race. You've got the likes of Kirat, Roy de France, Mayal in there as well. Have you got a fancy at Ascot?
A small one again, I thought was a decent each way price. It's interesting. 3 of the last 4 winners of this had the run before.
Yeah.
So that's an angle that I'm going to go for. EBT's Guard for William Muir and Chris Grassick, I thought was interesting. He was a shock winner at Newbury on return. He's only been put up £4, and he's been to Ascot twice. He's finished 3rd and he's won. So I thought, given the fact that he's quite versatile ground-wise, he could go well.
Yep, currently available 12-1 anti-post with Bet365. 4 places on this race currently. Johnny, I think we both like the same horse in this.
We do. I mean, my local pub, the Harold House, the Shamrock Thoroughbreds, that's kind of their meeting point, I suppose. Like, for the main guy in the syndicate, that's and it's a racing pub. If you're ever over, we've been talking about this trip to Dublin, you'll have to go there. It's a very cheap pint of Guinness, actually, as well. And I thought I had an exclusive that Holly Doyle was going to ride, but I see she's actually been booked up on the Racing Bows website now. He did travel great at the Curragh. I'm not sure what it was. Soft ground, first run back. He just didn't see it out. If you watched his run at Leopardstown Champions Weekend, you'd nearly be all over him for a race like this over 7 furlongs. He was just done. Stephen Thorne, I think he was at 23% for the season, going into, where did I see him? On Sligo. He might be at 22% now, whatever, but he's in great form. I think connections are respectful of the fact this is very, very competitive, but I feel it's kind of a slight fact-finding mission to see where they're at with him. I feel if he goes on the ground, which would probably be on the quick side, he definitely should be thereabouts anyway, over 7.
Yeah, with a name like Gleneagle Bay, obviously is by Gleneagles, who loved fast ground, so you would think that would suit better than the soft ground that he had in the Irish Lincolnshire. I napped him in the paper that day. They had booked Colin Keane for the ride. They'd put first-time cheat pieces on. I just thought over that mile trip, he was just too keen for his first run for 133
Travelled
days.
too well.
Yeah, he did. He's currently available at 12-1 with Bet365, and I thought this stiff 7 furlongs would suit him perfectly at Ascot. Holly Dahl is no negative for me, so yeah, I really quite fancied Gleneagle Bay at 12-1. Anything else for you? We've got a busy few days at Chester on the undercard. You've got a good meeting at Ascot. You've got like the Swinton Hurdle at Haydock. You've even got some Derby and Oaks trials at Lingfield as well. Anything else that took your eye?
I think I'm good actually now. Yeah, I think I'd kind of more wait to see the cards for the trials later on. I thought the Swinton, I'm kind of gone off. Like, I won't look at jumps racing almost till Galway now at this stage. Jesse Evans, who ran in Punchestown, keep an eye out for him in the Galway plate. Noel Meade won the race last year, and when he won at Galway last year, Jesse Evans, he immediately sort of spoke about this race. I actually thought he ran really, really well in a hot novice. Keep an eye out for him for Galway, but Yeah, I've nothing for the Swinton.
That's fine. Josh, for you?
Jesse Evans is going to win the Galway Hurdle, and Nürburgring's going to win the Galway Plate. There's one for you. But I quite like two.
Yep.
And they are both Dan Skelton trained horses. One runs in the first race at Haydock on Saturday, and I respect long draw a lot for Ollie Murphy. I think that he's been ultra progressive. Great to see him win at the April meeting at Cheltenham, and I do think that he could develop into a leading horse or something like the Stayers Handicap on Betfair Chase Day, and possibly go down at even a staying hurdle route. Or it's quite a weak race. He might be running in graded races next season over 3 miles. But there's a horse in there for Dan Skelton called Deep Purple, who I was encouraged by when he made his debut for Dan, because he finished a length behind Caelan of Fergal O'Brien, so I think they held in extremely high regard. They even entered him in the champion bumper. He was an intended runner, but he picked up a knock just before, so he didn't run. He then went and won a bumper. He then finished 8 lengths behind Wendigo in a novice hurdle, and he was the only horse who really tried to take him on. So I think you can upgrade that. The one who finished third was simply just being hunted around behind them. And then he won a Chepstow Maiden by 22 lengths when stepping up in trip last month. The winning distance was exaggerated by Jacquard de Moulin coming down at the last, but he'd won nonetheless, and he's been given an opening mark of 119. He's entered 3 times, one on Friday at Market Raisin, Warwick on Saturday, and also this race at Haydock. I think if he was to go to any of those 3, I'd back him. I think he's really interesting off that mark, and it's interesting that they're still running him. They clearly think that they couldn't get a win out of him. And then another one, a bumper horse just to keep an eye on for the Skeltons. He was third behind Money Garrow in a point-to-point. It's a horse called Diamond Ambition. Runs at Huntington on Thursday or Warwick on Saturday. Wherever he goes, I think he could be interesting.
Excellent. I've just got a couple, and it might be old news by the time this comes out. We might have had the inspection at Lingfield might have gone, but obviously at the minute Lingfield couldn't water during the month of April, and there's talks around their meeting on Saturday moving to the all-weather. So I've just got a couple of interests that I've backed. It wouldn't put me off if they run on turf, but I'd really fancy them if they were on the all-weather. So in the Lingfield Oaks, the 225 on Saturday, Giselle heads the market for Aidan O'Brien, and it looks as if she's going to come here because she wasn't declared for Chester. But Go-Go Boots is a horse that I put up on this show a couple of weeks ago when she was entered in at Sandown. Now, she is so well bred. She is a Knight of Thunder out of Hertford Dancer. Hertford Dancer actually won this race before finishing third in the Ribblesdale. She looked green on both her starts. They went the easy route and basically won a novice under a penalty at Lingfield last time on the all-weather. She's currently available at 3-1, so I thought she was probably the most likely winner in the Lingfield Oaks trial. And then in the 3:35 on the same card, the Chartwell Filly Stakes, I was lucky enough to be at Lingfield. Cathedral made her debut. She's an Ammo Racing filly, and she bolted up. I mean, she was 1-2, granted, on her debut, but she bolted up on a random Wednesday in September last year. She then went to Newmarket on her next start, was beaten by Merrily of Aidan O'Brien's. Now, she kind of let the form down on her reappearance, but that was about her 6th career start. Cathedral was coming over there after just her debut win. Now, if you look back, the form of that Newmarket race hasn't worked out too badly. Third that day was Flight, who obviously finished second in the 1,000 guineas. I like the fact that Rafe Beckett has gone the softly approach. They're going for this Group 3 and then progressing through the season. So I thought she'd be able to climb the ladder. Cathedral currently 2-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Chartwell Filly Stakes on Saturday. Right, I'm going to come to the lads shortly for their best bets of the weekend. So before we get our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know, the free-to-play 6 Horses Challenge. It's available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools available for 5 or 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. Terms and conditions apply. Josh, it's your debut, and there is no pressure, but between myself, Jamie Lynch and Ken Pitterson, all 3 of us gave best bets that all won last week. So no pressure.
I've got to pick a winner, and I'm going to go with Deep Purple, who is running possibly Friday or Saturday. He's in at Market Raisin on Friday, he's in at Warwick and Haydock on Saturday. But I was really encouraged by this horse at the start of the season, who finished a length behind Caelan, a bumper horse, who won at Warwick trained by Fergal O'Brien. He's held in extremely high regard. He was entered in the champion bumper, had a small setback just before, so therefore he didn't go and win. Sorry, he didn't go and run. But I think he'd not disgraced himself in that race. He then won a bumper Deep Purple. He then finished 8 lengths behind Wendigo, who finished second in the shallow hurdle. He was the only horse really to take him on that day. He then went to Chepstow and was slightly fortunate that Jacquard de Moulin fell at the last. I think he'd have still won, but he won by 22 lengths in a maiden hurdle. He's been given an opening mark of 119. I think that's extremely workable. And if he was to go to any of those engagements over the weekend, I think he'll take a good bit of stopping. So deep purple wherever he runs this weekend.
Excellent. Get deep purple in your tracker to get notified about the entry. Johnny, who for you?
I'm going to go with Gleneagle Bay at the prices in the Victoria Cup. He was 3-1 the last day in the Lincoln in Ireland, so you're getting maybe 3-4 times the price. Holly Doyle has been booked. I guess what Steve said earlier as well, he was fresh at the Curragh. He didn't see it out. He looked to me like he was going to be banged there, and he flattened out badly over the mile on softish ground. 7 furlongs form was very good. I presume they're happy that he'll go on the nice ground here, the faster ground. They wouldn't be going over. Holly Doyle has been booked. We don't have the draw, but Stephen Thorne's on a really, really good run since he started training. Strike rate around about 22-23% this season. You know, you're expecting that he'll probably run well in defeat more so than win, but he has a chance, and at the prices I'd be very happy to back him, probably each way, extra each way terms on the day as well.
Yeah, currently available at 12-1 with Bet365
Top
at
price.
the time of recording. Mine is going to go in the 1:30 at Chester on Friday. It's the Earl Grosvenor handicap over 7.5 furlongs, and the horse is Never So Brave. Now, I'm allowed to say this because Rishi isn't here, so he won't tell me off. But there are a few horses that have left Sir Michael Stoute and joined other yards this season and have been winning on their stable debuts, especially for Andrew Baldwin. Those include Fox Legacy, John Quill also won the Greenham. Now, it always catches my eye when a Sir Michael Stoute horse runs really well at 2 and as a juvenile. And if you look back, Never So Brave finished second behind Ancient Wisdom, who went on to win a Group 1 later that season, and behind Van Dijk on his second start, who won 2 Group 1s later that year. The Never So Brave won on his reappearance by 4 lengths, so his form fresh is good. He won over this course and distance of a mark of 94, where he beat Witness Stand. Now, that day, he was in receipt of £3. Witness Stand then won twice later the season and ended the year rated 115. Never So Brave runs in this off a mark of 101. Asheen Murphy is jocked up. Currently, anti-post betting with Bet365 have him 4-1. They have Kirat as joint favourite, but he's heading to the Victoria Cup instead. So I really like Never So Brave. Now, as we touched on earlier, anti-post bets at Chester is always a bit of a risk with regarding the draw, but I cannot have that he's not going to be better than 101 and 4-1 with Bet365 at the time of recording. My best bet is Never So Brave. Thank you very much for joining us this week on this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Many thanks to both Josh Stacey and Johnny Ward for joining me. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or listened to on this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Rishi will be back next week, where myself and Steve Mellish will be looking through the Dante Festival card at York, as well as the Lock-In Stakes at Newbury. Thank you very much.